The agenda for this video will be the procure to pay cycle in NetSuite. We'll go through the below steps. The first one will be the creation of a requisition by an employee. This requisition will be raised for a purchase of an item. Next step will be the requisition approval. This could be done by a manager in the organization. The third step will be the creation of purchase order based on the approval of the requisition that was raised in step 1. And then step 4 will be receipt of the inventory based on the purchase order that was raised. Next step is the billing of the purchase order. That's step number 5. And then lastly, we'll look at the payment of that bill. In this video, we'll be seeing the procure to pay cycle. This will be the purchasing flow. The diagram on the screen shows the actual flow of our demo. We'll start with the requisition and then we'll move on to an approval of that requisition. Items will be ordered based on that. These ordered items can either go through an approval workflow where the requisition will be approved by a manager, and then that approval will make the requisition into a purchase order. After the creation of the purchase order, it may be reviewed and then it will be received under inventory, and then whatever has been received can be billed and paid for. You can see that there are 3 swim lanes. The first one pertains to the purchase requisition, the second one pertains to the purchase order itself, and the third one pertains to the billing and payment of whatever has been purchased. And you can also see that there are 3 roles involved in this flow. One is an employee who will be raising the requisition and asking for approval. The second will be a manager. It could be a purchase manager or an inventory manager. We'll see as we go along. And the third one will be an accounts payable clerk or a controller who is in charge of billing for whatever has been purchased. To show you how this works inside the application, we'll move into the NetSuite application. We'll be using netsuite.com as a URL to log into our application, and I'll be using my credentials to log in. As we log in, we can see that I have logged in as the administrator, but for our flow we'll be using the employee to start with to create a requisition. So I'll go into the employee role. The employee first creates a requisition, and we'll see how to create that in the application. This is the employee dashboard where he can see his own portlets, customized navigation, as well as portlets that are relevant to him at that point in time. Under purchases, we are going to create a requisition here. So I will click on this option to enter a requisition. The requisition screen opens, and here you can see that there are 2 types of requisitions under the items drop down: expenses as well as items. For our example, we'll be using the items requisition. You can also see other aspects of this transaction where the requisition date has been not automatically populated. The requester is Turgut Ozben, the user under which I have logged in. Department, these fields can be selected as required so that this data can be taken into reporting, and then certain slicing and dicing of the data can be done to analyze which expenses, which items were requisitioned by which kind of department, so on and so forth. So to proceed further, I will go into the items requisition and I'll enter an item. The premise here is that Turgut Ozben is a part of the sales department, and for his sales related activities he's using an iPad for recording customer meetings, or to create documents or refer to documents, so on and so forth. So as soon as I enter the item iPad, the system is fetching the description, the quantity, so on and so forth. It is also picking up the vendor. It is part of the items master data, where the vendor has been automatically picked from the item master, Also, the estimated rate, estimated amount is also picked up from the item master. The department is sales, assuming that Turgut Osman is from the sales department. This information will be useful later on when some reporting is done and we are trying to find out requisition, total amounts, trends, so on and so forth. And the class, retail store business. This is again used for reporting purposes. There are also several ways of adding items to this list. So one of the ways is in which I typed the item's name and it was shown to me as a drop down. I could select it. I can also click on this button and click on list, where the system will show me a list of all the items that can be requisitioned. I can select one or multiple of them and add them to the requisition. But for now we will be continuing with our item iPad here, which I have added. I can also add a memo. This will help an approver, for example, to clearly view what is the reason for this requisition to be created. And once this is done, I will save this requisition. So now the requisition has been saved. Requisition number 45 has been raised with the status of pending approval. Now what does this mean? The status pending approval means that this requisition has been sent to an approver, a manager perhaps, for his approval, only after which the requisition can be converted into a purchase order. Right. So we'll make a note of this, requisition number 45, this way. And we'll move to the next role where this requisition has been entered, and the next process here will be the approval of that requisition. For that we'll have to move into another role. I'll be moving into the inventory or purchase manager role over here. So as the inventory manager, I have access to a different dashboard where I can see different key performance indicators that are relevant to me, a navigation portlet that is relevant to me, some sales related KPIs that are in a meter or graphical interface, as well as reminders. These reminders are actually tightly integrated into the workflow system, where approvals and any other actions that are required from the user who has logged in are shown real time. They're also actionable. So I will see a reminder here called requisitions to approve. I'll open that in a new tab. So if I open that tab, it'll show me these 3 requisitions are pending for approval from me. So when I say me, I mean Edgar Manas, the role I have logged into. And it also shows me a document number 45. This is the requisition that we just created before coming into this role as Turgut Osman. It also has the memo. It says for sales purpose Turgut. I'll take a view. So once the requisition is open, you can see that it is pending approval. And as Edgar Manas, I am able to edit this requisition. And I will be able to change the status to approved. Here again I have the option to add some more notes. There's also an option to update the data in the requisition itself. However, we will not be changing any of the details. We will only be approving it and saving it. And on saving, the requisition status becomes pending order. There's a confirmation saying that a transaction has been saved successfully. From here, within the same transaction, I can also create a purchase order by clicking on this option, on this button here. As you can see, that will be our next step, where a purchase order will be created by the manager. So I'll click on this. And NetSuite allows you to create a purchase order from those requisitions that you have selected. So if you have multiple requisitions here, or if you have filtered based on requisition number of vendor, or any of these details available on this screen, you will be able to select multiple requisitions. As of now, we'll be selecting only one, this one, and clicking on submit. And the system runs a background job to create a purchase order out of that requisition. The status, as you can see, is not started. I will refresh the screen. And the system has gone into the process of creating the purchase order now. And it has finished creating a purchase order. The purchase order number here is 13532. I'll open this purchase order in a separate screen to view it. And here we can see the purchase order. It has been created. The memo details are here available. It also has information about what item was to be purchased, the vendor's name, the quantity, cost, and other details that are part of a purchase order. We'll take a look at what the next step in our flow will be. It will be to review and receive this purchase order. And for receiving the purchase order, I'll be going into another role, the role of a warehouse manager. So I will go back to my application and move into that role. Here I can see warehouse operations. So since I have logged into the role of a warehouse operations person as Alicia, I have access to a different dashboard again, and my reminders are also different here. And I have the option to see orders to receive. I'll click on that reminder. And here I can see a list of all the purchase orders that need to be received for the warehouse. And since there are many purchase orders to be received, I can either scroll down and search for the purchase order that I want to receive, or I can enter this order number over here and we'll receive that purchase order directly. The purchase order we created earlier was 13532. So I'll enter the purchase order number and select tab on my keyboard. And the system directly brings me to the item receipt screen. So this transaction allows me to receive the purchase order. I can also see that this receipt was created from purchase order number 13532. This is the purchase order that we created earlier by approving our requisition from Turgut Osben. We can also see certain other information of this receipt, as in which location it is being received into. If it has to be received in a different location, that can also be selected. The posting period, which will be this month. There are certain options available in terms of forms, which we will be discussing in a different video. And the date of the receipt, which is today. You can also see which items are going to be received as part of this receipt. And this is the iPad item with quantity 1 and rate. At this point, I also have the option to put in extra charges that we have incurred as part of this receipt, like landed costs. To enter landed costs, I have to tick on this box here, and then I can enter landed costs per line item. There are several different types of landed costs which I can take an account of. For example, if I have paid freight charges extra on that shipping, I can add them here. So let's say I have added $10 as part of the receipt, and I'll say OK. And at this point in time, I can save this receipt. And the system tells me that the transaction was successfully saved. The transaction was also closed on the screen, so we're not able to see it as of now, but NetSuite allows you to go into the history. So all recent records are shown here. So the item receipt 5426 was the receipt that we just entered. I'll open that in a new tab. So if I go into that tab, I can see the item receipt. This item was received, and I can also see the GL impact of this receipt. NetSuite allows you to see the GL impact of all transactions that you execute, and here you can see that the account 2343 has an account amount of 439 credited to it, and inventory was debited, and a certain price was paid for freight, as you can see here, and all this gets recorded immediately in the GL impact. And if you go back to the item receipt, this concludes the step of actually receiving the items into the inventory. The next step in our flow will be billing of the receipt and then paying the vendor for whatever we have received. So I'll go back to the application and log into a different role. I'll log into the role of controller. The controller has a different view of his dashboard, different ratios that are shown which are relevant to his work, graphical interfaces that are relevant to him, KPIs, and reminders as well. Right. So here we'll be going into the purchase orders to bill. And you can see there are many purchase orders that are waiting to be billed by the controller. I happen to remember the purchase order that we had created as part of the requisition. Its number was 13532, and I can see it here. The date that it was created on was today, and I also have the memos that we entered during the requisition as well as the approval process. It was for the sales purpose by Turgut and it was approved by Edgar. So I can select this purchase order and I can click on submit to bill it immediately, or I can go into this purchase order and view more details before billing it. Here I can see the purchase order in all its detail, and over here, once I have confirmed that this was everything is in order, I can click on bill. The system creates a bill from that purchase order. It shows you whatever items have been billed as part of this bill. I can also see the register. And then I can save this bill. The bill also shows the terms of payment as well as discount amount applicable. So these are all part of whatever terms you have created for the purchase of these items from this vendor. It'll be part of the master data. And then the bill has been saved. The next step will be to actually pay the vendor for this bill, and I can do that directly from here using this button, make payment. Over here the system allows me to select multiple records to make payments to, but as of now, since we have put in the criteria and we have come directly from the bill, only one bill is shown as part of this bill payment, and the amount is $439. Some discount is available as we saw on the bill, 8.78 a dollars discount is available, which we will take, and a payment will be made for $430.22, and the payment will be made for $430.22. So as of now, I will save this payment. There is also an option to enter a check. So if the payment has been made using a check, then I can write the check number here, and then I can save this payment. NetSuite also allows you to print a check from the system, for which you have to select to be printed option on the bill payment, and then based on the layouts that you have set up for that check, a physical check will be printed for that payment, and the check number can be shown as part of the bill payment as well. If we go back to our process flow, you can see that once the bill was created, we have done our reviews and paid the bill. The payment itself has been processed. If a check was printed against that payment, that check can be physically mailed to the vendor to complete the payment. And that concludes our Procure to Pay demo flow. Thank you.